Hello, and welcome back to my video series on using Wwise and Unreal Engine. This video is going to cover the essential vocab used around these engines and what information you need to know about them. Our first and most important term is an event. An event is how Wwise triggers a sound effect. It can play, stop, pause, set volume, and way more. It's like a button you press which tells the audio what to do. Without an event to guide the sound effect to its desired outcome, the sound effect does nothing. In this tree diagram, this is an example of if the player dies, the actions are you play the game over sound effect and stop the low health sound effect since they don't need it anymore. And here's an example of this kind of diagram from the game Borderlands 2. Oh no, I'm gonna die. Oh. As you can see, when I died in that clip, the sound cut out because it was basically telling them, okay, the player died, cut out all the sound, start the respawn sound effect, and let's continue. With events, you also tie them together with sound banks. Sound banks are essentially packages of audio instructions and assets. You generate it in Wwise and load it in Unreal. It's a truck carrying goods from one warehouse to another. It's also important to know the difference between switches and states, which are ways to change sounds based on gameplay. States are global and are connected to factors such as time of day, weather, or the difference between on land versus underwater. Switches are for local things, such as footsteps that sound different on grass versus concrete, or even when you step in a puddle. States aid in world building, while switches add the important details necessary to communicate information. Here's another example of states and switches in the game Sea of Thieves. Okay, I am in Sea of Thieves, and I'm going to showcase the difference between states and switches. So this is an example of a switch. I'm walking on this wooden deck, and then I'm on the sand. Wood, sand, that's a switch. And then if I go into the water, this is a state switch. Now I'm under the water, sounds are muffled, indicating that I'm in a different state of realm. And now I'm above water. Next, I feel it's important to discuss the containers. Containers are like jars for your sound effects. There are 4 main types of containers: random, sequence, switch, and blend. Random containers are like a jar of popsicle sticks, with each stick holding whatever sound effect you put in there. It stores multiple objects such as music cues or sound effects, and randomly selects one to play each time it is triggered. This is commonly used for random footstep variation to keep the player's ears fresh and not dulled by repetitive sound cues. Sequence containers play its contents in a specific order. You can set whether the sound plays sequentially, loop, or have a time delay between each sound. It's like a playlist. For example, if you wanted a specific set of sound effects to play when a character opens a door, you use a sequence container and add the order of actions played. The door clicks open, the door swings, and then the door stops. Switch containers are mostly associated with music cues. They allow you to switch between alternatives in a game. Combat versus idle music are vastly different, and you need to make sure that switch happens appropriately. This is often achieved by creating a set of combat segments and idle segments, which go into their respective categories. And then the game can call from this container and switch accordingly. And finally, our blend containers. Without getting too redundant, it blends all of the sound effects placed inside. This can be pretty hectic if all the sound effects are being played at the same time though. Within a blend container, you can group your objects further using blend tracks based on the value of a game parameter. This lets you create smooth transitions between sounds as the game parameter changes. Those game parameters can be something like distance from an object, the player's speed, etc., letting you decide which object gets the most attention and when. Here's an example of the blend container without the blend tracks. The player is in a farm area, and if all the animal sound effects are placed in the blend together, it is hectic and overwhelming. Now that the blend tracks have been added, you can see that the distance to the player affects the loudness of each sound effect, making it easier to understand and makes the player happy. An RTPC, or a real-time parameter control, allows the sounds to change in real time as the player interacts with the game. A common example that I see for an RTPC is when you are playing a horror game and as the enemy gets closer, your heartbeat becomes louder and more apparent. There's also for when a car speeds up, the engine gets louder, or the pitch of footsteps being altered based on the character's speed, and many more. I will demonstrate some RTPCs in Resident Evil 4 now. I am going to be using Leon here to help showcase different examples of RTPCs in video games, specifically in Resident Evil 4. So I've got him at low health, and usually when he's not at low health, he's not making these grunts. But since he is at low health, he's making these grunts and these sighs, really showing that he's in pain. So that is an RTPC. Another kind of RTPC is player speed. For example, right now, walks kind of sauntering, and although he's hurt, you can hear that the footsteps are more prominent and more loud. Let me use this. Another example of an RTPC is explosion distance from the player. If I throw this right here at my feet, the sound lasts for a long time, it's very prominent, it's very loud. But if I were to throw it over there, it would not be as prominent. I probably wouldn't even hear it. So that's another example of the parameter controls used in games. Great! These are your building blocks of vocabulary, and it will help you guide you through your sound design projects. Thank you for watching.